Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here from Things That Matter, having a conversation with you about all things that matter to me. Now I don't know if they matter to you, but at this point I'd just like to welcome you all to Things That Matter. Now I've got a few things that I want to talk to everybody about, and I hope that I don't bore you, but it's about having a conversation about things that appear on Sky News that I think are funny, humorous and sad, and all of the above. And I really appreciate the fact that I'm probably speaking to no one again, but that's okay. I'm kind of getting used to this idea of having a conversation with oneself, because it's kind of therapeutic in a bizarre sort of way. So there's a lot happening in the world at the moment. I haven't got a clip on it, but there's certainly some interesting stuff happening in relation to Donald Trump and him saying that he understood everything there was to know about COVID-19 long before everyone else knew about the harms that COVID-19 would form or create, and he's chosen to act in a completely different way to what he initially understood to be the problem, which just simply says that he's just a crazy man, and that if anybody wishes to celebrate Donald Trump, may you do it on your own. And it's interesting, when I was going through Twitter today, I noticed that there were heaps and heaps of threads around the Woodward recording what he had said and then playing it back. So it's really hard to say, there weren't others in the room. No one else knew what was going on. There can't be any way of contradicting what he said because he was the only one there. So it does make you wonder about his, if you tell a nation that everything's going to be okay, and you actually know that it's not, which is really what that was about, what sort of leader are you? If you're going to, walk everybody into the lion's den, suggesting that the lions perhaps aren't going to eat you. It's just crazy shit. But that's what he's done. And I hope the American people wake up to it, because he is just a walking disaster. And, I get a little bit distressed sometimes, because I think sometimes, am I the only one that sees what I see? Are there? No, that's not true. I know there are millions of other people that kind of see what I see, but I wonder about what are the people seeing? And I'm going to play you a clip in a moment from Sky News where Andrew Bolt, is just a crazy dude, and also I think Alan Jones, got a clip from him as well about the National Cabinet. So. But what do these intelligent people see? Why is it because the left wing are arguing one point and they believe then that they have to argue the other, regardless. So you could have the most horrible person on this planet, which they have in Trump, governing the most powerful nation on earth, and everybody wants to side, or not everybody, but a lot of people want to side with him, because he is the most powerful person on the earth, and don't give a shit that he's the most terrible, horrific person on this planet. I don't understand it. I don't. I mean, it wouldn't matter to me if I saw someone on the left who was behaving in the same way as this bloke was. I'd be raising all hell about it. It's a bit like the Republicans against Trump. So there's a whole group of people that believe in Republican principles, but certainly don't like the man, and they have made a stand. And are making a stand. And there's a number of those groups out there that are fighting against the man. So they're trying to uphold their principles around who this guy, what they believe the system should look like. And on the other hand, they know that the man himself should not be occupying the position of president. And I think that's the most reasonable view. It doesn't matter. You can kind of be bipartisan around this issue. If you don't like the person and you want them out, regardless of which party they belong to, get rid of them. I don't think it's the giant leap to understand that if someone's crappy, they shouldn't be there. So get rid of them. And I can't understand why Australian, particularly people at Sky News, who I actually kind of see as, not stupid, but they act stupid and they celebrate this dude for reasons that I cannot understand. I'd like them to explain to me why. What is there about this man that is so attractive and that you want to sit by and acknowledge? But I want to start with a piece from Peter Gredlin, who's incredible in Credlin. She is. And remember that she was Tony Abbott's sidekick for a number of years while he was Prime Minister and doing and saying the terrible things that he did. And she supported him and was his mouthpiece. In fact, I would suggest offered him many of the suggestions that he took on that became a part of Tony Abbott's legacy. So this is her discussing how we use words with a bloke who's supposed to be a wordsmith. And I'm fascinated by this discussion because it's absolute crap. Here we go.
Go into words matter because they matter, or they matter. Sometimes you hear a phrase, you hear it so often it loses its meaning. Other times you think you know the meaning. Do you really? Each Wednesday, our resident wordsmith, the broadcaster extraordinaire Kel Richards, pulls apart the words of the moment. And each time I hear him on words, I reckon I learn something new. He's with us now from Sydney. Kel, I want a bit of
I just need to say that we're not going to learn all that much about words today. Listen to this dude. I can tell you. I don't know what planet she's from, but it ain't this one.
Campaign flavour. We're in the sort of final stages of the US presidential campaign. Given they've got to get out the vote in America, it's not compulsory voting like us. They have to fire up their base and then get others. So words are real campaign weapons, incredibly important if you get them right, but a bit of an own sort of grenade in your own camp if you don't. President Trump has always used adjectives to define his opponents. In one word, I reckon, he nails it. Now, that's not easy to do. They're incredibly powerful and they cut through better than dozens and dozens of others.
You can call them adjectives or you can call them just insults. So here's a man who says negative things about anybody who crosses him. And, you can't describe them in any other way. They're just insults. So how can this be some sort of intellectual discussion about language when the man just insults everybody that disagrees with him?
Phrases.
Yes.
We had Crooked Hillary last time round. This time it's been Sleepy Joe Biden. I know it's personal. I know his critics say it's all personal, but it bites, doesn't it?
It does, and we need to remember that Trump is a great campaigner. I mean, as you say, voting is optional in America. You've got to get him out to vote, so you've got to give him enthusiasm, and he's a great campaigner. He is great at doing that. But he's come up with a number of expressions for Biden. When Biden first went to the basement, he started calling him Joe Biden. One stage he called him Sleepy Joe. Then he expanded that to Sleepy Creepy Joe. Then Crazy Joe.
Okay, someone please tell me what this has to do with language analysis. I've got no idea. Language analysis to me, really interesting words that we may use to describe events, to use descriptive language to express an idea, not just stupid, friggin' arrogant statements that we make about somebody. Here they are talking about all the stupid words that he used to describe Hillary Clinton. This is Credlin trying to have an intellectual discussion with a wanker. Seriously, it's terrible.
And now he's Slow Joe, which really implies that his mental processes are slow. And unfortunately for poor old Joe Biden, whose candidacy should be included under the heading of elder abuse, he sort of supports it by the way he functions quite often. Carl, the other one he really likes is crazy. He attacks Nancy Pelosi, calling her crazy Nancy, and nervous Nancy on occasions. He's attacked Kamala Harris as crazy Kamala. And he called her Marge Simpson. Now, for some reason, that caught on and people started talking about it. The actress who does the voice for Marge Simpson had to then say, oh, no, she didn't think that Kamala Harris was a horrible person at all. That's because people notice these things and they catch on, and it is good campaigning.
Yeah, and it's looking at some sort of idiosyncrasy that most people are picking up that's not quite right in focus groups, but you synthesise it and you nail it in a word or famously in that handshake in the 2004 election, John Howard.
You don't nail it in a word. You're just an idiot who wishes to call other people names. Oh, I just called him an idiot. But there again, I'm allowed to. But, you know, it's just that it amuses me that she's got this guy on discussing the sort of abusive language that Trump is involved in. And it's not clever. Anybody could do it. You know, we have a lot of other people that can call other people some terrible names if they like. And, you know, I think that it is better often if we're creative about our argument as opposed to just simply call. You know, it just means, I guess, that if we don't have an argument, then we have to call people names. It's as simple as that. And Trump, who has no intellectual capacity whatsoever, the only trait he has is that of being able to call people names. That's all he does. So, you know, I don't know what the hell. We'll listen to some more and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Mark Latham, something crystallises at a moment. Now,
Can I just say they're not good at doing it to Trump. They're not as good at coming up with names for Trump.
Okay, come on that one, because they call him a liar and a racist.
Yes.
Tell us whether they land any blows.
The reason why people don't come up with a whole host of names against Trump is because there are too many of them. And, you know, I guess you could say it's a compliment if you can only think of a few in relation to you. I remember there was an issue around Nancy Pelosi at one point where he found it difficult to find a name to describe Nancy Pelosi. You know, if he finds a name to describe you, you can almost wear it as a badge of honour, as opposed to thinking that it's something terrible he said about you. Because in terms of, you know, the chaotic president, you could think of 1,000 names, you know, the liar of all times. There's a stack of names you could attach to this man. And I think it's better not to. It's better just to talk about his crappy behaviour and how that impacts the rest of their country and the rest of the world more than anything else.
They keep saying it again and again on the assumption that if you say it often enough, then it will start to hit. What they haven't come up with is a kind of slow Joe, sleepy, creepy Joe sort of slogan. I searched through what the major media organisations were saying, and the only nickname or label they ever came up with was a team of NBC reporters who were doing a report at a time when there's a big turnover in the White House staff, and they called him a Captain Chaos. But it didn't catch on. And it was repeated once or twice in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and then was dropped. So they haven't been as good at labelling Trump as Trump is at labelling his opponents.
Yeah, look, he's got that showman sort of reality TV
yes.
ability to sort of pick a mark with middle America. Fake news.
Okay.
Big word, or big phrase last time round, still pretty powerful.
Oh, absolutely, because it's marked the whole of his presidency. When you get something like the Atlantic Monthly running a story based on 4 unnamed sources...
The thing that we need to remember about using things like fake news and this name-calling stuff is that this is what dictators do. This is the crux of authoritarianism. And so what we have Trump doing is expressing his sense of power and authority over others and disrespecting everyone around him. Absolutely everyone. And so is this the sort of leader that we want of a country such as the United States of 340 million people? No, I don't think it is. And I just think it's a poor representation of leadership. And if people like this, like Credlin and this other dude, think that this is good leadership, then I suggest you go and live there. Seriously, move out of this country, move over there if you think this guy is so fabulous, you know, because Credlin used to work for a guy that was like this. Seriously. That was extremely right-wing, misogynist, evil little man that he is. And now you're sprouting that sort of right-wing, evil sort of thinking that is really, really unhelpful. So I'm just going to move on, though, because it's not like I'm running out of time. I have as much time as I care to be here, to be quite honest. But I do want to move on to this other idea that fascinates me, and this is about Trump being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, frankly, I couldn't think of anything worse. The man who creates havoc and chaos in his country and around the world someone is suggesting that he should get the Peace Prize for the negotiation between Syria, Afghanistan, and the AEU. Is that right? So, for Palestine, sorry, between Palestine and these other countries. And I think there's a lot of criticism about this particular plan, and the Palestinians aren't too happy about it. But we're not going to hear from them. We've got to suck up to the Israelis, apparently. And if they're happy with it, then that probably means the rest of the world is supposed to be, even though the Palestinians are not. But someone in Sweden has nominated him for, or Norway, I think, I forget which one, have nominated Trump for the Peace Prize. And what I like about this bit is that they forgot, or have forgotten, I think, that President Obama was awarded the Peace Prize. I'm not too sure that I necessarily accept the idea as to why he did, even Obama, of whom I'm a fan, I hasten to add, but I'm not 100% sure that I even accept the reason or the logic for him receiving that Peace Prize. But the last person in the world that I would expect to get a Peace Prize of any description, like if he solved the wars in the Middle East, well, give him a Peace Prize. If he saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives by some sort of peace negotiating, then fine. He's done nothing in terms of So I think in this piece they mentioned North Korea. Well, what did the man do in North Korea apart from step over a couple of meters onto the North Korean border? This man has no negotiating skills whatsoever. Everything is transactional. He doesn't understand human beings. He doesn't understand. He has no empathy. And how can he, given those qualities, possibly be in consideration for a peace prize? Because there's nothing peaceful about him. His country's in chaos. The world thinks it's a joke, and yet someone nominated him for a peace prize. So let's just hear what these two jerks, or name calling, not good. But anyway, let's hear what these two individuals have to say about him.
Donald Trump.
Yes.
Someone's actually in the Norwegian Parliament just announced that they've nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize for the deal that he brokered between Israel and the UAE, the United Arab Emirate. But he's also been attacked now in America for allegedly saying that soldiers who died in war were the losers. No one's actually named a single person who actually heard him say that. And Trump this week said that, well, in fact, the only soldiers that
just on that point, no one has put their hand up and said that that's what he said. I agree. But there are many people from reliable reporters. The guy from The Atlantic is a renowned reporter. And if he has evidence, that is, if he's actually spoken to people who wish to remain anonymous, that this is what he said, then I can almost guarantee you this is what he said. And the other thing is that there's a whole host, every other network, including Sky News in the US, have verified what Trump said through other sources. So the fact that no one's put their hand up is completely irrelevant, because they don't want to get their head bitten off by Trump, and they know which side their bread is buttered on, I guess.
Were generals. Here he is.
I'm not saying the military is in love with me. The soldiers are. The top people in the Pentagon probably aren't, because they want to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make the bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy.
Rowan, that was such surprising peacenik talk.
They've just done some research in the US that shows that his support amongst the military is woeful, absolutely woeful. And after this revelation about what he said about military people being suckers and losers, I don't think that's helped him one iota. And so in that sphere, he lost support because he had a dig at commanders and stuff, which is really odd, because he's the man who loves to be surrounded by admirals and corporals and a whole host of other interesting people with a lot of badges on them because he thinks that makes them important, and he likes to be around them because then it makes him important. But now he's not so important with them because he just shat over all the veterans, of which there are many millions in the United States, by saying that they're suckers and other things that denigrates who they are.
I actually checked. Do you know Donald Trump is the only American president since Jimmy Carter, nearly 40 years ago, who has not ordered US troops into a fresh war. Even Obama started a war in Libya. He's a real peacenik, a deserving winner.
I love that bit. Even Obama. So it's like an acknowledgement that Obama actually didn't start. The war in Libya didn't last very long, and it was about getting rid of Gaddafi, which they did, which no one really says, well, that was a bad thing. You know, perhaps he shouldn't have gone. But, yeah, so even Obama, you know. But the interesting thing is, I also heard some statistics the other day that said that that Donald Trump, in his 3 and a bit years, has ordered more drone strikes than Obama did. And one of the biggest critiques made of Obama's administration was the number of drone strikes he made. But Trump, well, he may not have started a war, but he's certainly adding to one by bombing more places in Syria and Afghanistan and Pakistan than anywhere else. And you know, it interests me that we don't hear these days all that much about what's happening in the Middle East. And I wonder whether that's because there's only so much time during the day, and that's taken up with all of Donald Trump's other bullshit, frankly.
The Nobel Peace Prize. So why does the left hate his guts with all this hippie talk about the military-industrial complex?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? It was Dwight D. Eisenhower who first kind of belled the cat on the so-called military-industrial complex, and this was the idea that there were these powerful forces, arms dealers, arms manufacturers and so on, who kept pushing subsequent administrations in America into whatever war they could find to make profits. And the left has always railed against the military-industrial complex. It was a great theme in this.
This is true, and I actually agree with this guy that it is true that the left have often been anti-war, and certainly are less likely, I mean, particularly in the progressive side, Bernie Sanders and others, to support increasing the amount of funding provided to the Pentagon. However, it is interesting to note that this non-warmongering individual known as Donald Trump has provided more funds to the United States military than any other president on this ever. And so given he is rallying against these people that want all this money to pay their mates who provide all the war equipment, you know, he's still prepared to provide funds for them because he believes that having a large military makes him look tough, like Putin and Xi and North Korea.
60s, that the Republicans were the baddies and the Democrats were the goodies. But we saw it didn't matter whether it was Democrat or Republican presidents. They one after another went to war for whatever reason. Donald Trump, as you say, is the only president not only to not go to war, but to actually deserve his nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. It is Christian Tybring-Gjedde of the Norwegian Parliament, a conservative parliamentarian who today nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. He was almost going to be nominated last year for his work with Kim Jong-un and the fact that very much a conflict with North Korea, the threat of it had subsided, but he's been nominated now, and the left cannot stand it. This is a great president, and it's yet another reason he deserves to win in a landslide.
He does.
Oh, my God. He's a great president. It's another reason why he deserves to win in a landslide. Okay, name-calling time. You're a wanker. Seriously. I can't believe for a moment that anybody would suggest that this man is a great president. There is nothing he has done that is great. He's intellectually inept. He has people around him that are so sycophantish about him that he's just terrible. So why do people like these two blokes think that is the greatest thing since sliced bread? I will never know. It's beyond me. Well, clearly, like if we have a look at it, then one could argue that some of us are clearly smarter than others, and I'm certainly not suggesting that I'm smarter than them. But boy, I have certainly a different viewpoint. Like if you see somebody who's acting badly, then you know they're acting badly, don't you? Like if you see someone beating somebody up unnecessarily, not that you should beat up anybody for any reason at all, really. But if you see someone beating someone up, do you go up to them and say, well, that was okay. You're all right. I understand the reason why you beat them up. Though, God, I can understand that. They were a different colour to you. So I can understand why you beat them up. Like justifying it. They're poorer than you are. Yeah, I can understand why you'd beat them up. It's like justifying bad behaviour and making it the norm. I don't understand it. I don't accept it. I think it's crazy thinking. But this is the way that the right wing, obviously, or some of them, not all of them, as I said earlier, but the way some of them think. And it's a wee bit sad, I think. So I just wanted to finish with my favourite man, Mr. Jones, because as I keep saying, I don't understand why he left the radio station, because he's now making a bloody nuisance of himself on television. So, but he's here, and I'll be frank, I don't actually watch Fox News. I watch KO Sport because I love the footy and golf, but I don't watch Sky News, thank God. But they're on the internet, and I like to see what the right wing's thinking, if you call it that. I like to think what is happening between that vacant space between their ears. And lo and behold, every now and again, up crops my mate, my buddy, Mr. Jones. And here he is talking about the National Cabinet. So I love these armchair politicians. Like if you were, so I think, if you were in charge of the response to the coronavirus, what would you be doing that would be all that different from what's being done now? Would you do what Trump did? Would you just say, well, bugger it, the economy's far more important than people's lives. We'll do what we can to open up the economy. We'll send kids back to school. We don't care if they get the coronavirus, because apparently the coronavirus, according to people like Trump, is not going to affect young people. Even though I did hear today that Trump was told that the number of young people that are dying as a result of this coronavirus are considerably high in the US. So, what does Mr. Jones have to say?
Before we go to Campbell, this National Cabinet met last Friday for the 27th time to work out a solution to these border closures. There's no scientific justification for border closures, nowhere. In fact, leading world authorities say they shouldn't exist, including Professor Michael Levitt, I might add, from Stanford University, a world-regarded epidemiologist, but what would he know? The best Scott Morrison got was some wishy-washy down-the-track promise by rogue premiers to maybe, just maybe, reopen the borders in time for Christmas.
So we say Michael Levitt. Who knows who Michael Levitt is? Like they could say Tony Tonkin has said, and he's a fabulous person. What would he know? So it's almost like they take that negative defensive response. So it's kind of like they know they're going to be criticised for who they're talking about. So they say, what does he know? And these rogue cabinets. So suddenly we're told that this cabinet and these ministers are all out of control. Go, Alan.
Before we go to Campbell, this National Cabinet met last Friday for the 27th time to work out a solution to these border closures. There's no scientific justification for border closures, nowhere. In fact, leading world authorities say they shouldn't exist, including Professor Michael Levitt, I might add, from Stanford University, a world-regarded epidemiologist, but what would he know? The best Scott Morrison got was some wishy-washy down-the-track promise by rogue premiers to maybe, just maybe, reopen the borders in time for Christmas. Again, no consensus between the states. And after all the media hype leading into this National Cabinet meeting, there was no consensus on what the definition of a hotspot would be. Mr Morrison said he put forward a definition and the states were viewing it as a starting point. Prime Minister, this National Cabinet is a failure with a capital F. Get rid of the thing. Anyway, let's go to Campbell.
Can I just, sorry about I had to replay that first bit for you. I've changed that since. But what does, was it always a failure? Okay, so we've got to a point whereby Victoria's had to lock down and borders have had to close. Does that mean that the Cabinet is a failure? No, because the things that the Cabinet decided upon unilaterally, so they all decided on it in a very bipartisan way. Some of the things that they decided upon in terms of how to manage the virus have saved lives. So when you get to a point and you think, now, things are a bit tougher now because people can't move from one border to the other. Victoria's been very strict on what they've said about their outbreak and how they're managing it. And there are people like Alan Jones who disagree with that. Why does that necessarily suddenly mean that the Cabinet didn't work? Clearly it did work. They were thinking, in fact, at one point, and they might still do this, of continuing the Cabinet for the rest of whatever. So instead of having what they call it, the government, the Council of whatever it is, instead of having the, it's on the tip of my tongue, I can't quite get there, COAG meetings. So instead of having them, they now can have these more regular meetings about a range of issues. And after COVID-19 stops, there are still many issues that need to be talked about and discussed on a sort of a monthly basis or whatever with each Premier. So why wouldn't you include premiers in that total discussion around issues which impact all of them, such as trade, transport, and travel and hospitality industry and, where you need to play golf next, stuff like that. So why don't they have that general discussion around things that are important to all of us that are impacted federally? Things like, which they should have been talking about a long time ago, which is things like aged care, mental health. As the president of the Child Protection Party, one of the things we're focusing on at the moment is ways by which we can federalise child protection, so that it isn't balanced by, or isn't manipulated by each state. That's sort of a federal way of looking at it. So there's lots of things though that within the Cabinet, the National Cabinet, that could be done on an ongoing basis that would be really helpful. What else does Mr Jones have to say?
Campbell, what do you make of all of this in relation to a National Cabinet? People are sick of it, aren't they? 27th National Cabinet meeting, what's it achieved?
Well, Alan, I think that it is a sham, and I don't think it's working at all. And sadly for the Prime Minister, I think as time ticks on, it will end up making him look politically weak. He's riding high in the polls at the moment, but I think it will make him look ineffectual. Dennis Shanahan, the respected journalist of The Australian, wrote a very interesting piece in the last few days, which I agree with mostly, and he was pointing out that bit about political weakness. The thing I didn't agree with is he was saying the Prime Minister didn't have power, didn't have levers. He has a lot of levers. He just needs to decide to pull those levers and get these premiers into line.
Yeah, I mean, all he's doing here is elevating the power of the premiers, and you can see that every day, but he is perceived as weak. There is a crisis across the country that the public...
I like that. He's perceived... Now, I don't know, maybe he is perceived as weak. I'm not a Morrison fan, let's be honest. But I am a fan of someone who attempts to work together with others. You may not agree with everything that they do, and you may not be able to control things. There are things that the states can do that the federal government can't do, and that's embedded in our constitution. So to expect someone like Morrison to be able to take the lever, whatever that means, and to control everything that's happening nationally is really hard. And that, you've got both Labor and Liberal premiers on either side of the spectrum as well. So they've got their own ideology, I guess. And I would suggest that being able to find a way to work with them is the biggest challenge, not to bully them, because these guys here, Campbell, really, mate, you didn't do all that well when you were in politics either in Queensland. So don't try and tell us what to do, because you're a bit of a miserable failure yourself, buddy. And Alan Jones, never been in politics, but thinks he knows all the bloody answers when he doesn't. He thinks, I love the idea that I think Alan Jones thinks that he controls what other people think, because he interviews, some of the most important people in Australia. But that doesn't mean, Alan, it's your ego, buddy, that's getting in the way, nothing else. And you don't have as much power anymore as you used to have. So I suggest you just drop it down a few tones, and start to look at things a little bit more rationally.
Understand, people can't move. There's no movement across borders. There are states with no coronavirus cases where you can't go. And they're saying, well, Prime Minister, you're the Prime Minister of the country. What are you doing? Now, while ever he's seen to do nothing, he must be seen as being weak. It's very damaging to him.
It is damaging, Alan. And
if you choose to do nothing, which he is not doing, that's just not true. He's not doing nothing. But if he's having conversations with the states, and he's working with them on something which we don't want to become spreading around Australia. It is contained primarily in Victoria, a little bit in New South Wales, and some cases in Queensland. But that's it, and that the Victorian government, Dan Andrews needs as much support as he can get. He doesn't need people jumping on him all the time. And I know that if I was living in Victoria, I wouldn't enjoy that experience right now either. As I said in a previous broadcast, I didn't think that being locked down was all that great fun, even though I seem to get a lot done. But I don't think that having a go at Morrison necessarily about doing nothing, because they say he's doing nothing, is necessarily correct.
Since April, that ultimately the economic wreckage, the carnage caused by COVID-19 and the response, particularly from these state premiers and territory first ministers, is something that will fall on the shoulders of Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg. And I don't think they've been really, well, they must know that, but I just don't think they've really sort of woken up and smelt the coffee. They will wear it. As you've just said, the whole issue about going to a national cabinet meeting and not having a decision, not having a clear-cut answer. I mean, I'd like to see the PM really strong-arm these people. You mentioned the GST before. What about...
I love that bit. I'm going to finish it on that. Strong-arm these people. What in the hell do they think? Now, as I said, not a Morrison fan, but I'm supportive of the National Cabinet and getting a group of people together that aren't necessarily like-minded on everything to talk about the issues and hopefully bring about a resolution. Clearly, if you've got a group of 8 people in a room, you're not going to have them all coming to a singular conclusion every time. It just doesn't happen. So I think that to be able to have that expectation is just stupid. But to be able to work towards at least some consensus with a group of these people is positive. And I guess there are some things that Morrison could be doing that are different. But you don't strong-arm people. We don't, Campbell, you're not a thug, are you? Because that's the sort of language that we'd expect from the mafia, not from an ex-politician such as yourself. So on that note, I just want to thank all of you for being with me today, and the whole one of you. And I hope that you can put some comments down below. You can do something really exciting, like subscribe to this site, and you can even, if you really want to, you can ring the bell to let us know that you're here, and that when we have another post, you will be notified. So thanks, everybody. And I just want to say to my friends in Victoria, stay safe, look after yourself. And if anybody catches this before 7 o'clock tonight, we're doing a live feed on the Child Protection Party, speaking to a mum and a daughter who had the kids were removed some 4 years ago and returned. And it's a fascinating conversation I'm hoping we'll have with them. So join with us here on Things That Matter, and tune in to Child Protection Party for any live feeds that we might have along the way. Thanks, everybody. Take care.